Hello and welcome to another episode of Educational. This is Roy. So we're the podcast that talks about aging issues, not only us our journey through aging, but also about some things that we see with our parents. They're in pretty good shape right now, so it's not like we have to do a lot of heavy lifting. But mine had just gone through a move, semi. Reduction in square footage, not a lot, but some. And so we thought we would have Jill on this show. And Terry, I'm going to let you introduce our guest, Jill.
Jill Yesko is a certified professional organizer and founder of Discover Organizing, a full-service organizing and downsizing firm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her first book, I'm Right Here, 10 Ways to Get Help with Hoarding and Chronic Disorganization, debuted in June of 2021, and her next book, Chronological Order, The Fine Print for a Large Life, is due out later this month. She's an avid surfer, snowboarder, skier, and dog mom, is engaged to a sweet guy, and has 2 adult kids. Nathan is her company CIO, and Mary is a geologist. Jill's prior careers were in social work and human resources, but she has been a professional organizer since 2003. Jill, thank you so much for joining us today. We're happy to have you on the show.
Thank you, Terry. I really appreciate that introduction.
You bet. So tell us a little bit about how did you get into from the journey from social work to organizing? And I don't know. I'll say that I know kind of the backstory on some social workers that that's part of their life is organizing other people's stuff too. So I'll let you tell your story.
Yeah, it's so true. I want to talk more about that because social workers are excellent researchers, and they're excellent resource finders. They're like hunters. And whenever they see someone in trouble or they need a resource or they need some type of help, what I love about social workers and case managers, and even, nurse, psychiatric nurses and anyone that works in that mental health or even, mental health hospitals, to be honest with you, which is where I spent some time working as a liaison to the community from a mental health state hospital to the community. One of the things that I really learned about our ilk, if you will, is that we just do not quit until that person gets the help that they need. And we follow up because we can't sleep if someone's like in crisis. It's like a thing. It's like, it just keeps gnawing at us. And I remember, back in the days of the beeper, where I would be excited if it was my turn and they're like, oh my God, why? Because you get extra money. And I said, no, because someone might need me. And I'll be able to hopefully help them. And they're like, wow, you're young. Okay. Now I would, take that beeper and, be like throwing it out the window, probably. Being an entrepreneur, I feel like I'm always wearing a beeper. But I would say that, finding those resources is the most gratifying thing, especially working with seniors, because honestly, even though there's websites, paid sponsors, putting the ads on the top 3 or 4, and that might not be the right solution for them. So one of the things we like doing is taking, kind of culling that information and saying, there's really good information on page 2. Let me help you find that resource, because it's, you kind of do have to dig for the right fit for your need. And so going from social work to this job wasn't really all that much of I didn't really feel that bump. I did have a slight stint as an HR director for a psychiatric hospital because I did, frankly, need to get into administrative psychiatric work because I wanted to see what that was like. Because when I was little, I did not want to be a policewoman or a ballerina. I wanted to be the administrator of a hospital. And I did actually get to do that. And that was pretty cool, being the head of the administration of services, which was my HR hat that I wore that my boss gave me. So it was kind of cool to actually have the opportunity to learn the clerical side, which is, I think, the other part of social work is the clerical side. There's so much paperwork that goes into it. So the cool thing about doing that for the county was that I learned about government. And when you learn about government, you learn about things like Medicare and Medicaid, and you learn about red tape, and you learn about how to check boxes the proper way and to be patient and to schedule time to fill out paperwork. And so when I work with my older population, guess what I have the patience for? I have all day. Let's roll up our sleeves and, put that red tape away because I'm going to help you. And that's kind of that beautiful gift that social work gave me, is that ability to sift through all that stuff.
A lot of people don't know what social work. My exposure was in a nursing home environment, and we used to kind of laugh. We'd walk in the social worker's office, and there'd be a hearing aid in 3,000 pieces that, while they're on the phone trying to get a replacement and see how we're going to pay for it, how long, they're like trying to put it back together like a jigsaw puzzle to see if we can't just make this thing work just until the new one comes in.
Right. Had businesses who became very familiar with it. I mean, most of the clients I was on the phone with today, even, they're like, please don't email me. I don't own a computer. I hate a computer. So a lot of our population are saying, I don't have these resources handy. And I don't know where to turn. And so they call the area agency on aging. They call, their charities for their faith, whatever faith group that they're in, to get ideas, or they talk to neighbors or friends. And a lot of times we just wish they would just kind of call us, because after all these years of being in business, we could be like, what you need a certified placement advisor that can help you find a new place to live with the budget that you have in place. And that's not our job, but we can at least direct you. And then we can come back and work with you once you know where you're going, and we can start downsizing, which is, I know, the purpose of this podcast tonight is to talk about, downsizing, which is such a big deal.
And it's so hard to know. I'm sorry.
No,
it's so hard to know what resources are out there if you're not online. Like my mom, she doesn't check her email. She knows how to shop and order things, and she knows how to play games, and that's about it. she can, Google friends and, try to contact them, things like that. But there are so many different resources out there available now that weren't.
Right. And rabbit holes become mazes, of, it's very confusing. And it kind of gets into this paralysis situation where they're like, I gave up. I was on the internet for 2 hours looking for help, and I made a couple of calls, and no one really knows what I'm talking about. And I think that's frustrating for me to hear, because there has to be some easier way to find resources, for all the different needs. And some of the government pages are really antiquated, and they're so hard to navigate. And I was trying to help a senior find a personal care home recently, just to look up one, just the one that she thought she might want to go to. And it was like, when was this website made? Like, it had to have made when the internet was born. Like, it was that old. Like, is this like what was that? Start with a W. I can't remember, but it was that type of code that old websites had. I mean, I remember having that kind of website when I started my business in 2003, and like a software engineer came over and helped me like set it up, and it was so rudimentary. But I think there's got to be a better way for that.
It's not user friendly at all.
Well, and I think while the internet has made it easier to find things, I think that it's increased the amount of persistence and staying with it, because used to you could pick up the phone, if you could find their number, pick them up, call them, and they give you some information. And it's frustrating now, because I can find people on the internet, but getting a hold of them to get a specific question answered or find something out, it's very difficult in most cases. And I think that's where a lot of them get frustrated. They're used to picking up the phone and talking to people.
That's
and
right.
Nowadays, nobody wants to talk on the phone. I mean, it's
a lot of automated stuff. And
Right.
Also, I've noticed too, a lot of chat, like, we aren't available by phone, so please send us an email. Well, that's going to make anybody frustrated.
Right.
To have to send an email to put a ticket in to find out if you're going to get services or not. And I'm like, okay, that's hard, you know. I think that's really hard for people to have to not have immediate satisfaction because they're used to calling and getting a human being on the phone to help them and not have to wait for a call back for 3 weeks or something. But I mean, we are dealing with work shortages and labor shortages, you know, for sure. But anyway, so what I do like about our company is that when we go out to do our initial assessment for downsizing, it's at no charge because we want people to feel like they can ask us anything and not worry about the clock ticking. And if we aren't the right fit and we can find them, if they just really needed an estate sale because their kids have handled everything else, then we give them our local resource guide. And then we circle a few that we've worked with and say, you know, choose who you'd like. So we like that. But I think when we go and sit down with them, it's like a 2-hour visit. We tell them how the downsizing process works from the very beginning until the very end. And we go through that entire checklist. And we give them moving checklists. We give them, here's things that you can't forget to do. These are important things, from the turning off of utilities to where do you send your Verizon or, you know, cable box or whatever.
Right.
And we can help with that too. But we have the scope of services form, and they basically when they see the scope of services form, they're like, wow, there's a lot to do. And I'm like, right, but we have every step in chronological order for that reason, so that you don't get lost. And this is yours to keep, but you have to tell us how much or how little of our services that you need. And that really helps them put everything into perspective. Like, wow, this is a long process. You can be my tour guide and we can get through this together.
And sometimes the actual steps, that's the easy part. It's a lot of times it's that emotional part that, you know, you're dealing with, because there's a lot coming at them at once, probably leaving a house that they may have been in for a long time. Number one, going to a new and strange place. Also the thought of, I've collected this stuff all of my life and it's one realization I think people get to is they way overestimate what they're going to be able to fit into this new downsized unit. And so then that is another stressor that at some point when the reality sets in. And then, you know, what you said is that that happened with my mom exactly. She thought she had it under control. And then it was like on a Friday, she was telling me, well, we're going to do this and this. And I'm like, you know, this is going to be a lengthy, time consuming, tiring process. And oh, no, I've got it lined out. It's going to do this and that. And anyway, so Monday she calls me and she's just worn out. She's like, yeah, you were right. This is a long, tiring ordeal. And she said, I'm not through yet. I'm like, yeah. And I think just to go to that point is, these are things that we need to think about sooner rather than later until there's maybe crisis mode.
Yeah, we try to tell, a good rule of thumb is 6 months before you think you might want to sell your house. So that might even give you a year, might give you 2 years. But if you know that the process itself before you list your home and get ready to move, you know that that's going to take 6 months. And I mean, I can do it in 2 weeks, right? But why would I put someone through that?
Right.
And we have gotten those SOS calls like, you know, I thought I could do this myself. My closing is in 2 weeks. And oh my gosh, can you guys just come over? And we blitz the house and we pack it up and we donate and we sell and we take things to auction sites and we take things to, and it's not the way you want to go, because now you're making decisions under duress instead of making those decisions, really thinking things through. And we always do second and third passes anyway. So even if we've been through your whole house and we've picked up everything and we've made decisions, keep, sell, toss, donate, we've done all that. I'm like, about a month before the move, I'll say, can we do that one more time? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I was hoping we could. And we go through the whole thing again. And they're like, now that I've seen my new place, I don't know what I was thinking, boy, and we go through it again. And then a week before the move, that we do it one more time. And I will have watched people get rid of 50% of their stuff a week before the move. Cause then they're like, I don't know what I was thinking. I said, well, you were just starting out in the process. you were
Right.
thinking I might need it someday. And it's something that's been in my life a long time. And we have to remember that these things have been witnesses to these people's lives, our lives, for 50, 60 years in the same house sometimes. I had a client who basically was raised in a house and got married, and her parents gave her the house and they moved on and let her and her new husband have this house. And so she never left that house. And then I had to move her into a high-rise apartment, and it was like shocking, so
Right.
she was an attorney. She was very, very clear about her wishes, about how she wanted everything. And I helped her set up organizing systems within the home. I paid attention to how she liked things in the old house, and I tried to mirror that. And that's a big factor. And the other big factor too, and you mentioned this, Roy, is that they're moving to a whole new, sometimes community. And I always try to say, if you can get your loved one, your older adult, into a community that's really close in the neighborhood of that they're used to, their familiar grocery stores and pharmacies and post office and things that they're used to going to first, even if it's for 3 to 5 years for the transition period, that really
Right.
reduces the relocation stress syndrome, which is a real thing. RSS is a real thing. And so we try to get people to say, look, that first step we make may not be to Virginia Beach, to where, the daughter and son are. It may not be to Florida where you want them to go. It may be within their own neighborhood. And you have to be okay with that, because it's their life. It's their comfort level.
Right.
Yeah, all those changes all at once are just.
Well, it's too much. It's really,
It's
it's
for
a lot.
anybody to handle, let alone, an older adult who's been somewhere, in the same place for
Right,
such a long
right.
time.
Well, I think we have to remember too that from what I've learned through my years, is that change is the very worst thing for the senior adult. It's just they've gotten used to doing everything the way they do it, and change of any kind just can be devastating. So we have to be very careful, make sure that we're handling and providing the resources that we need. And I think it's interesting, and maybe this may be more psychology that we may not can really answer, but it's, like myself, I downsized about 7 years ago on my own, and it was the best decision I ever made. And my kids owe me money because they're not going to have a lot of stuff to deal with when the time comes to dispose of me, but I don't know. I'll tell you what happened. A friend of mine moved into an apartment. And I thought it was really cool because they started building these apartments around here where they had the parking garages, not like, the old days where, you parked in a parking lot and then had to walk upstairs. This was like if you lived on 5, you parked on 5, and it was cool. And I thought, let me try that. And then, so anyway, I ended up selling the house and got rid of probably 90% of everything. But I will say it was the best decision I made, at least for me, because it was stuff. I mean, I had 2 barns full of, tools and ladders and stuff I'd collected years. And I definitely, at this age, I don't want to be hanging off a ladder doing any work. We'll hire somebody to come in and do that. But I just think it's funny that, it was easy and so liberating for me, but then there's sometimes it's really difficult for people that are still hanging on.
I'm a
Yeah.
hanger-oner.
And there's so much sentimentality to objects, and there's so much connection, and holding one object can really bring it all back.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I see it every day. I mean, I see someone struggle and say, that's the thing that my aunt made for me. Or I remember sitting in that chair and talking to my dad every night. Or I remember watching Wheel of Fortune, and that was our TV tray when we watched Wheel of Fortune with my grandparents. Or, that's what I ate my spaghetti out of on Sunday nights with my grandmom. And so you have these very powerful memories. So one of the things I like to do is I like to listen to the stories, first of all, because they deserve that. I don't rush anybody through this process unnecessarily. It's not that important, but what I try to do is ask them if I can take photos of the objects and make them a memory book. And if they could tell me a brief story about each thing, then we can call the book like my favorite things or my memories or, the things I wanted to keep but couldn't. They could call it whatever they want. And we do try to photograph the house that they lived in for a long period of time, the way it was decorated. And then even if we can't make and recreate that in the new home in some way, what it does is it gives them a very clear memory about what role those objects played in their family history and in all the fabric of their memories. And so they can show their new friends wherever they're living. On page 5, the dining room table where they had all of their holiday meals, and the couch where they watched TV or listened to the radio at night or did crossword puzzles in the morning room, and what that looked like. And I think that's extremely powerful for people, generation wise too, to share that not only with new friends, but also with grandchildren, and to tell the story of how they came to be there. And so this book that we do, it's, you can go on Shutterfly and make this book, for like $35-$40, right? But we stopped sending flowers to say thank you, and we just send these books because like that's way better than
awesome.
That's such a great idea.
We listen. Like they say, oh my God, you heard me say that. Or, this one woman had yearbooks of her dad's, but she's like, I'm 80. Why do I still have these yearbooks? And I was like, well, tell me about your dad. And he was like this big athlete at this big university. And she felt like she was dishonoring him by throwing these books away because someone should know that. I said, well, okay, show me these pictures. So she opened the pages and she pointed, and I put Post-it notes on. She goes, what are you going to do? I said, you'll see. So I took pictures of all of the pages. There was like 8 of like 8 yearbooks. There was like 8 pages where he was. And I said, do you see these pictures on my phone? She said, yes. I said, may I dispose of these yearbooks now? She said, yes. And when we made her memory book, we told the story of her dad. And we put those pages in that. So she had a mini yearbook, and she still talks about that book and still refers our business because she's like, these people get it. They understand that this is important to not just move somebody but to make sure we take our memories with us.
Right.
Oh, I love that. My mother has all of that stuff, and she downsized about 6 or 7 years ago. My dad was in the service, and we lived. I went to 6 elementary schools. We moved in the middle of every school year, so I went. And all of it, and of course, while we were we were in Europe while we were there. Mom bought all kinds of things, paintings and crystal and just all of these serving kits and things like that. That my kids are like, what is she going to do with that? And my sisters and I are like, oh, those are beautiful. We got to keep those. We got to keep that Waterford. That's the one I want. Which one do you want? Because she's got 8, 12 sets of china. She did at the time when we moved her, but it just seems like kids these days they don't want that stuff.
No.
They want their own stuff or something.
Yeah, they want their own stuff, and they don't really see the emotional value to that some of those hard-earned and hard-won possessions were, because a lot of our parents got those things from their parents who lived through the Depression. And my mother's a baby boomer, like a cusper, baby boomer. And that generation I find them to be extremely independent. They don't want you to do anything for them for the most part. They want you to be next to them as they do it. And so we've learned to say, okay, we still have traditionalists that we're working with in their 90s. Because a lot of them say to me, Jill, I didn't think I was going to live this long. I gotta downsize. And I'm like, you're 95. Now's a good time to begin. And even my own grandmother, I moved her out of where she was. She was living in a nice, senior community, and then she needed to go to independent living and then assisted living. And she was in her mid 90s when we did that. And she had 16 kids. And wow. I created buckets. My mom said, just give us everybody a bucket and tell her every time she comes up with something to who it goes to, but it has to fit in the bucket. I'm like, that's a really good idea. So I did that, but it was a lot of work. And her husband had all these papers, and paper is the monster. I thought photos were a monster, you know, to deal with and to go through, but papers upon papers, because that generation, again, you got to save it because you may have to argue about the water bill. You may,
Right.
because that wasn't an online generation. And that's what I say about the internet. Like, there is no trust. Sometimes I see that there's no trust that the internet will produce the information that we need, because the internet has let them down. Honestly, you know, it has been frustrating for them. It has been basically the IKEA basement, right? When you go into IKEA and you're like up and you're looking in the beautiful floors, and that's what you think the internet is. And then you go to the basement of IKEA to go check out, and you're in the labyrinth of choices and colors and bright things. And it's very distracting to me. Even I dread going to IKEA. So when I go to Google and I'm looking for solutions, even myself, it's like one rabbit hole after the other. And it is frustrating. So I think for papers, you know, I actually have to demonstrate, let's go into your account. Well, I don't have an account. Well, let's create an account together, and I'll keep it in this notebook, this real tangible thing. And we'll create a notebook of all these ideas and the instructions. And I literally will do screenshots and make a binder and say, this is how you get to this. And if we do this correctly, and you demonstrate to me that we can do this correctly, you can get rid of 5 filing cabinets over here today. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, really, because this is all back up to that one thing. And if I show you, so really, honestly, everyone I've taught how to do these things, they pick it up like that. They're all bright. They all look at their binder. They all look at the cheat sheet. And they're like, oh my gosh, I was holding on to all this stuff forever and ever because I was afraid. And I'm like, well, you're free. Just like you, Roy, you're free of all your burdens of your stuff. They're free of having to be an archivist and living in their archives. They don't have to live amongst their archives anymore.
Well, and unfortunately, he's not free from all of my stuff, because he's still trying to help me take, you know, photos and store my paperwork out of that pile that it's in. My black hole, you know, table over there that it just gets stuck in. And it's just crazy. It's hard for me to do.
Well, someday maybe we'll do a show on paper, how to get rid of those paper piles.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah, because I was that guy, and I'll tell you, even though, you know, I embrace technology, I would print my water bill off. I would pay it online, and then I would print that off and staple them together. And I had
that proof.
I had all these filing cabinets full of stuff, and then somehow I came to the realization of what you're saying. It's like, hey, you know what? I just have to go online and look. And if they don't get my check or it falls through, they'll call me. I mean, they're not shy about calling and saying, hey, you owe us money.
They'll find you. Don't worry.
Yeah. But one thing I, you know, kind of maybe getting a little too deep, but what I use is OneNote. And then I had used Evernote in the past, but you know, it's what I encourage Terry to do, is just take a picture of the receipt and file it, because you can find it much easier. You know, and I'm not going to pick on her. I'll say me that, you know, I had receipts laying around or filed somewhere good, but when I needed them, could I find them? Usually no. Now I could go to OneNote, look up, you know, what year it was, and find that receipt that I'm looking for so much easier. It's just, but you have to train yourself to do that. It's not easy for some to let go of paper.
Well, what you're talking about is a habit, a routine.
Yeah.
And one of the best books I've read on like getting someone to try something new to benefit them is Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've heard of that book. James Clear. Love that book. I refer to it all the time. And what I love about that is, like, you know, just getting us to do just that 1% change. And for you, Terry, it might be like just getting used to the app for a couple of weeks or a month, just looking at it, not even using it, just making a habit to just open it, look at it. Don't take pictures of receipts yet. Don't do anything. And then when you're ready, then you start doing receipts with it. And then maybe 3 months later, you start doing other documents with it. And so that you're then building that habit of saying, you're holding something in your hand and you know what, this is a fill in the blank, a receipt, a piece of paper, a document that I need to keep. But now that I've learned how to be really proficient in this new digital filing system, I think I will go ahead and take a picture of this warranty and then throw the warranty away without that. Uh-oh, what am I going to do? I better hold on to that. Yeah. But it does take a while.
And I encourage even if you have sentimental stuff for the kids, this is the conversation that we have is, how many treks do you make from the house to the storage unit to dig through there to find this, whatever that you got to save. But you think about if you just took a picture of it, you could recall it anytime, anywhere that you wanted to.
A plaster handprint. I mean, I kept all of it. I just couldn't throw it away. So I've got boxes of the kids' stuff, storage unit, and I still have them.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, I just did this. So my kids are 26 and 28, and I emptied one of these pods. When I moved 2 years ago out of my home into an apartment, and now we just got this house. I said, well, I'll put all the memorabilia in a pod. And it was a little 8x5. And the guy came and took it away. And it was like a lot of stuff, like the baby blankets and the first outfits and the first Barney and whatever. Okay. And I said, it's fine. The kids will go through it later, blah, blah, blah. Well, then I was like, you know what? I'm an organizer. I am a photo organizer. And I like to think of myself as an archivist of some kind for these families. And I'm like, I got to practice what I preach. So I had the pod delivered to my office because I had a lot of hands on deck there. They emptied out the thing, and I thought I only had 6 bins of stuff. Guess how much stuff I had?
How much?
15 bins. And I mean bins. I don't mean like little boxes. I had the Home Depot bins. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big tubs of stuff. So I said, put this on tape. Let's record it. And I basically laid it all out. Like I'm just as guilty as y'all. I'm 52 years old. I have 2 grown children, and I'm basically making a documentary right now. And I am taking those bins and a lot of the stuff from around here in my house that I'm not even looking at. Photo albums, like those yearbooks, things like that. I'm taking a picture of the cover of the yearbook and then the 2 pages I was in, and I'm making a chronological book of my life. I'm putting 5 coffee table books. That's it. That's going to be all of those 15 bins.
Right.
And we're making like a film. We're actually doing this. We're like halfway through photographing all of my 3-dimensional objects. All the kids' art has been scanned. And the kids get to keep it all. They get their own digital copy, but they're like, throw it away once you've gotten it photographed. And that feels so good to me, to know that my footprint is going away. And all my stuff, by the way, is not only going to be in these printed books, but it's going to be on a Next Play digital frame on playlists. I can do my childhood, my teenage life, my 20s, 30s, and 40s. So 5 books, 5 playlists, and I can mix and match them and shuffle them in my digital frame. And I already downloaded a few things or uploaded, and it's motion activated. So when I go in my living room, I walk past it and a picture comes up of me when I was 6 years old. And it's just a lot of fun.
How cool is that?
Oh, that is really.
Yeah, it's a really neat way to still get to see everything, which is why we took those pictures in the first place.
Right.
Like me, when I moved, there were things like my desk set. I had a big office and some other. I guess I must have been. I wasn't granted a lot of the sentimentalness or something because I didn't have a lot of, the little knickknacks and stuff. But what really got me was, so when I moved all this stuff into the storage, it was like $60 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And then over like 3 years, then all of a sudden I was paying like $180 a month. And I said, for what? I never go over there to visit my stuff. I mean, it's just there. And so just made a decision at that point. I was like, hey, getting rid of it. And I got rid of I think I had 4 or 5 tubs of books that I held on to, but for the rest of it, I just got rid of it. And I mean, at some point you just realize that if it's been in the storage for 2 or 3 years, that probably
You've already said goodbye to it. Yeah.
Well, see, and I think, yeah, it's been in the storage unit for a couple of years, but it's not right here in front of me, so I'm not going to use it. I don't even know what I have. It's like going shopping. Every time I go back to the storage unit, which is not very often, I feel like I'm shopping. It's all new stuff. So I'll bring a little bit here. I got an excuse for everything.
Oh. Yeah.
I hear that a lot too. I do. It's very common. You're not,
I'm not special. I know.
no, I'm just saying you're not out of line. I mean, a lot of people feel that way, and it is comforting to have your things around you. So I understand that too.
Well, so tell us a little bit about, I know that optimally we would be like 6 months out before we move, but are there some documents, or are there some things that we would need to think about before we actually engaged you?
Well, in terms of documents, I guess one of the things I do, if you're talking about, like, you mean like my agreements, or do you mean like vital records?
Well, no, just before we called you out, if I was saying, hey, we're going to move, we want you to come out, are there some things that we, should be thinking about and checking off the list before you come over to kind of help get us off to a faster start?
Well, it mostly comes down to, the hours that you're willing to spend with me, or the hours that you're not willing to spend with me. Because when I come out and I do an assessment, I can do a written plan, and you guys can execute that on your own, or you can pull me into that. So we do that scope of services, like I said, and we do go through things like your paperwork. What I always say, what are your goals? Because your goals may be, oh, we're going to keep all those filing cabinets, we're bringing them with us, but we're not bringing all this furniture that would take in the place of that. So the paper then becomes more important, or the documents become more important. And if you have a business, like your own business, then we have to talk about those records. And then I always recommend you talk to a CPA and that kind of thing. And we have like a whole checklist of, we need to put in together an emergency box. So let's put, your power of attorney, your will, your, any type of living will that you might have, any stock certificates, your insurance documents, and then your cheat sheet of who are all your people, your lawyer, your banker, your main doctor, your accountant, all those key players in your life that, people may need to reach if something happens to you. So, it really depends. Like, this is, we're in September, and it's disaster preparedness month, right? It's also Save Your Photos month. So I've been having a field day on the internet, and Instagram, but giving out tips galore. For me, I try to say, if you just have a go box, a go folder, a go box, certainly digitize these things, please, please, please. But if you have a go box that's handy, it can already be in your car. It could be, I don't care where it is, as long as you have a copy. Some people keep a go folder in their freezer because it's a fireproof box. Not forever. It's like up to 3 hours or something like that. I have to look up the numbers on that. Please don't quote me, but it does have like a fire rating, right? It's a,
yeah.
Oh
my gosh, that's funny you say that, because we used to save change through the year to go on vacation with my grandparents every year. And my grandmother kept the change at the back of the refrigerator because she thought, oh, nobody's going to look in the fridge for any money.
And she's absolutely right. No one really does. I mean, it has to be a pretty desperate criminal who might be hungry. But I really feel like establishing those goals is really important, because somebody may feel very strongly about books and clothing, but not feel very strongly about all those guitars that you're like, oh, you don't want those? Oh, no, I don't play anymore. Oh, okay. But the books are important. So it's really about square footage, your goals, your hopes, your dreams, and your activities. And we align all of the tasks that have to do with downsizing with that person's lifestyle today, not who they used to be, if they used to quilt, if they used to sew, if they used to paint, but now they like to go ballroom dancing and now they like to ride horses. Well, let's get your tack ready for your horse stuff. Let's get your colored pencils and your art stuff together because you like to do watercolor. Let's do that.
Right.
Let's create that space together and let's shed the former self, because the good news is if you want to pick all that stuff up again, you just got to go to Amazon or to the store and you can create that new hobby again. You can
Right.
always begin again somehow, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so we call those like those documents, those life essentials and things that should be in place, like your insurance policies and your house and all that stuff we go over and just ask. We have like these checklists, like, do you have all this in place? Should we help you get this in place? And we're not the only ones that can do that. You can get a geriatric care manager involved. You can get, really anyone that is like a senior placement advisor knows how to do all this stuff. They know how to prepare documents and help you put these kits together, just like us. And when sometimes we work with them and they'll say, hey, can you help us find, they did a home inventory years ago and they say it's over here and we'll go digging for it.
Yeah.
We're working together. So, Terry, you were talking about like your stuff, inventory. It made me think about home inventories. And there is this really cool program that's free called Fair Split. And for those people that are looking to downsize and move, we always start a fair split free account for the client. We get nothing. We're not like an affiliate. We don't get cash or, I'm not getting sponsored by these companies. I love this company because what it does is like later that inventory, first of all, can be shared with an insurance agent. Two, we use it for the move to check off like a cube sheet, like, hey, everything came, off the truck. We have it checked off. So we use that. And then the third reason it can be used for is if you want to pay them, you can go into a paid account, just like Asana is free and all these other free accounts you can use until you need it for a different purpose or you need to use it more. It can then become an estate planning tool. And what I love about it is it becomes like that's what made me think about it. You and your sister were talking about like China and you get this and I get that. And I really want the Waterford. That was very special to me. That's great. So you can do this thing called emotional bidding and no one sees that you want it. They just see that someone wants it. So they may not even see that. You can choose your settings. You could do it blind and you vote.
Oh, you have created a monster now. I'm going.
It's free. And here's the cool part. This is even better is that you can then to that line item, like let's say you're making that list of inventory of Waterford crystal. You can take a picture, upload the picture and take any notes. Mom got this in Dublin, or I'm sorry, Waterford is in Cork or wherever. And, mom got this in Cork with dad on their honeymoon or whatever. And you tell the story. And now you've got stories, you've got a picture, you can add videos of her talking about the honeymoon into that account. Oh yeah, it's all free.
Oh my gosh.
And then once you get into the emotional bidding part, when you start using it with your lawyer, then it becomes, I think it's like $250 and it's a one-time, I don't know. Don't quote me on that price because I think it changed. But it's definitely like, we're like, it's like indispensable for us because we're like, you guys, look, you now have a count of everything you own and it's in boxes now. And when we unpack it, it'll be out of the boxes, but now you have photos of it. You've got a complete list of everything and it's all part of our service. And it's
interesting.
It's right there.
That is fantastic.
And that I would even think that would be good, for people like Terry that are still storing some of her more precious items in a storage unit.
I'm picking up a theme, Terry. I'm just
because sometimes we think about, we saw this thing, but did we get rid of it? Is it at the storage unit? So, to me, this would be a great inventory for those things because that way you can always say, yeah, we got it or no, we got rid of it because we're always, going back.
And if you want to cheat, you guys, you can take a video of your storage unit and just at least get a video of like this, like the physical things. You can't video what's inside the boxes. I understand that, but if you take a video and say storage unit 1, storage unit 2, and that's your little cheat. and then you can take individual pictures of stuff. And then
Yeah,
you
when it was going in, that would have been that's what I was saying about is when you're putting stuff in it, if you actually kind of cataloged it going in, that would be all. One thing I was going to talk about that you said about getting the legal papers together and stuff. Please, please, please tell somebody where that box is at.
Yes.
Because I know of people that it's like, well, it's either at home or it's at the lawyer or it's at the CPA. But if something were to happen to somebody in between all this moving around, the family may not know where it was for a few weeks. So
that's right.
Always good just to let somebody know where it's at. And,
The location of that is very important. And that is, I hate to just keep talking about fair split, but one thing that you can't do on that inventory is write document box number 1, like on the list.
Yeah.
And there's a drop down thing that says the location. So you can say it's in storage, it's at the address, because you call the name of the file is always the property address. And then you could say it's at this address, it's in storage, or it's at Aunt Susie's house, because you can create and customize the destinations. And that helps us track huge photo collections, because the client's like, wait, is that at your studio or is that at my house? I'm like, let's check.
Yeah.
Because in Fair Split, it'll say it's at Discover Organizing's photo office, or it's at this address of the lady that gave us the stuff. And she's like, oh my God, okay, I wasn't sure. And then a lot of people will say, did it go to donation? Did it go to estate sale? Did it go to my sister's house, or do I still have it? And I'm like, let's look.
Yeah.
And sure enough, you can look and see it was donated. And
It's
then
funny, I had a
report. You can do reports. Like, give me a donation report. It gives you a donation report just using that category. So it's such a great tool.
Wow.
I have to check that
I
out.
wish I owned it. I wish I thought of it, but
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to say, if people I grew up with, they had a huge family, and they kind of had the manual version of this one. I guess mom must have been feeling ill or not too great. So one Thanksgiving, she passed out a different color Post-it note to every kid and said, go around and mark. And it's funny because the kids kind of took a joke, but they left them. And so, when you'd go over there and see them, there's still Post-it notes all over everything around the house about which kid had dibs on it.
oh my God, that's a great tool.
We still do that at mom's. We label. I mean, mom's like, okay, who wants this? Who wants this painting? I mean, it's always big stuff. It's like, who wants this? And we're like, no, you can't. We start arguing about it. That's the one we want. And we have our names on the back of certain things, not everything, but my sister.
No, that's very smart. Oh, look, oh boy. Yeah. We have to have a show about sisters soon.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, I have one too. So I guess what I would say too with the Post-it notes, I love that idea, you guys. I'm glad you brought it up, because when we do our initial assessments, we actually use Post-it notes for things that are just one category only, and that's just basically the things that you want. And then we go from there. Or they'll say, can we do one for my condo in Florida and the one for here, because I'm going to stay here. I'm just moving around this block to a small. And so we'll say, okay, pink is Florida, yellow is Pittsburgh. Great. And then we go from there. And so that's fun. That's fun for them. They like doing that because then they don't have to move things around because they're heavy, but they get to just stick things on.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is, do you travel? Do you guys travel?
We do travel with our clients depending on their budget. Otherwise, we will refer to a partner, which is basically someone that is like our company, and we call it job sharing. So if I am moving someone to Florida and they don't want to bring us with them because of financial reasons, we will coordinate with a senior move manager down in whatever county or city in Florida. There's usually one there that can receive the goods, help them unpack, and they receive our inventory through Fair Split, and they know how to use that because a lot of us do. And they just check it off and help them settle, and they just give us a report at the end of the job, and we call that job sharing. And we don't have to like pass off referral fees or anything, because that's just what we all do with each other. We're very community based. So
I know we're running way long on time, but another question I wanted to ask was about kind of the starting of decisions. And I know you talked about making hopefully maybe 2 or 3 rounds goes through the house to look at stuff. But back in the old days, it was they told you to make the definitely I'm keeping pile, the definitely we're getting rid of pile, and then the pile we don't know about. Is that still kind of the steps that you go through?
Yeah, sometimes if it's really hard, we have a maybe, and I'm not sure pile, which is okay because we're going to hit that again on a second pass because everything has to be touched and decided upon if we're selling your house eventually.
Right.
So sometimes we'll isolate those items in like a guest room that are they're really struggling with. So they're out of sight for a little while. We'll give them a little mental break from that decision. And then we'll pick that low hanging fruit first and get that, situated. But again, everything is about math and everything's about numbers for the most part when we're moving. So we have to think about square footage, and we measure and we do a very articulate space plan. And if they can't fit it, they go, well, I guess I can't keep it then. And that usually helps that decision get made. But for the I don't know area, we do revisit that. And then we have techniques for helping them make decisions, which is exhausting. So we do try to do those low hanging fruit, easy decisions first. We get their muscles built, their decision-making muscles built really strong so that when we come back again and again, they're like, I know how to do this now.
Yeah.
And I had a talk with my sister, like you said, or my brother, my aunt. She said to let it go. She said she didn't want it. And I'm so glad you made me call her. So.
Yeah, and I think that's good to build that up because it's like, and even me personally, it's like that second go around of, okay, now what? It seems to get easier. And then it's like almost some of these definite keep things, you kind of decide, no, not really. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that.
I guess the best tip I can give you before we all say goodbye here is to make sure you start in a storage area or a basement or an attic or something that you haven't lived in for a while, because you might hit a log jam like an old photo album or a baby's christening outfit or something. That's okay. You can put that aside. But I will tell you that 90 to 100% of the time when we start in an area that's a not common space anymore, not lived in space, like an old kid's bedroom or a guest bedroom or something, that seems to really help build that confidence. And we only start out with 2-hour sessions when we start, and we work up to 4 and sometimes 6 if we're getting closer to a deadline. So try to pick a sweet spot and set a timer for about, we set the alarm for like 2 hours, and then we check in and say, can you do another hour? And if they say, nope, we're pretty much toast now, or stick a fork in us, we're done. We stop, we tidy up, and we make schedule for the next time, because it is exhausting. And I think that's one thing to remember, is just to do a lot of self-care during your decision-making process.
Right. And then another great reason to start earlier rather than later is so you can give yourself a break. I mean, this is going to be a difficult, it's not only physically demanding, mentally, emotionally, it's going to just wear you out. So give yourself some time to be able to go through it at a good pace and not just wear yourself out.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, again, we are way over, but we appreciate all the great information. It's always fun talking to you. We always learn something. So again, tell us about what is a habit that you use, a habit, a tool, something you use in your daily life that you feel like adds value, personal, professional, either one.
I know that I absolutely could not live without the calendar feature in my phone, because task lists are fabulous, but appointments with myself for that task are vital. And as I age, my memory isn't so great. So I can trust that when I do think of something and I put it in as an appointment, as a professional organizer, I will never be late for my own appointments. So that's very important to me to keep my promises.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And I learned this from an early age. I got to go through back in the day, it was Franklin, I think, was the system that we used. But it's so refreshing it's so refreshing, like to-dos or calendar stuff. If I get it marked down, I don't have to keep worrying about, am I forgetting something or thinking about it? It just really takes that away. And it's like, it almost makes you feel kind of free once you get that off your mind. You know it's taken care of, and something's going to remind you of it.
Yeah, then you're not.
I went to a class.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I just said then you're not thinking about it.
Then
Yeah.
you're thinking
While
about
you're
it.
trying to-
I was about to tie into with that. I went to a class and I'll quick. This neuropsychiatrist was teaching my professional organizer group. I belong to an association, and he came to visit, and I raised my hand and I said, I used to not take notes, and now I find that I need to take notes all the time. Why is that? Can the brain get full? And he goes, absolutely, it can get full. And I was like, really? He goes, your sponge is full. Like you have to get rid of it. You have to download your brain. And he said, Jill, you're writing to forget, not to remember. You don't want your brain to remember everything. Let your brain have a break. Yeah. And give it room to learn new things, but don't have it try to remember everything. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. So I just keep downloading and downloading and downloading. And I feel like I am free to think and feel. And it's like I'm making space. I'm decluttering my brain. It's amazing. So
do you not take that? So you don't.
I do now because I want to. I do.
So you don't have to remember.
I don't want to have to remember because the paper is taking care of that for me. The phone notes feature is taking care of that for me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I always kind of joke that I have a 20 meg hard drive brain living in a 1 terabyte world. It's just, all the stuff that's coming at us on a daily basis.
Yep.
And I think, again, this gets kind of off topic, but it gets back to we need to give ourselves a break. If we could just understand the sheer volume of information that comes at us daily, we wouldn't expect that we would understand it. And I'm like you, I think taking notes, and we use a automatic note taker for some of our calls. And the nice thing is it not only takes the notes, but it organizes it where you can find it, because there's nothing worse than having something that is valuable and not being able to put your hands on it when you need to. So,
the complete, you just summed up why we organize.
Yeah.
Retrieval.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all the great tips.
Awesome advice. So tell everybody about Discover Organizing, how you can help them, how they can reach out and get a hold of you.
Okay. Well, they can always visit our website at discoverorganizing.com. You can always call us 412-344-3450. And we're here for you whenever you're ready. We do virtual work from anywhere in the world.
And how about your books? One more time on your book.
The book is called, the one that's published is called I'm Right Here. And you can get that at imrightheRebook.com or on anywhere where books are sold, like Amazon. And it is also available on Kindle. And then Chronological Order, the fine print for a large life, that is due out in a few weeks. And that will also be available on Amazon.
Okay. Well, great. Jill, thanks so much. We will get back together. Sounds like we got 4 or 5 more shows and you're talking about everything. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Educational. Of course, I'm Roy. You can find us at www.ageucational.com. We're on all the podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to, please reach out. Be glad to add it, make your listening easier. We're also on all the major social media networks. Probably hang out on Instagram more than others. So reach out. We'd love to interact with you there. You can also see a video of this interview when the episode goes live over on our YouTube channel. So check it out, as well as some of our other past guests. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your health.